Dear God, we give thanks for this opportunity that we are able to join together in community and communion. We know that within your presence, we have that communion, which allows each of us to have that direct conversation with you. And we know that this, as a time of community, means that however far apart we are from each other, we recognize that we are each a part of each other. We give thanks for this time that we can spend within your presence. And during this time, we know that we are all visible to you and that all our thoughts may be shared with you without judgment. And it is within this safety that we are as one. And we leave this service in your care and keeping and ask that all that is said, all that is done, and all that is thought should be within your name, which is love. Amen. The reading that I've chosen for you today is by a man called John Pavlovitz, and it's from his blog. And he wrote it just a couple of years ago. And his blog is called Stuff That Needs to Be Said. And this reading is called Everyone Around You is Grieving. The day my father died, I was at the grocery store buying bananas. I remember thinking to myself, this is insane. Your dad has just died. Why the hell are you buying bananas? But we needed bananas. We'd be waking up for breakfast tomorrow morning and there wouldn't be any bananas. So there I was. And lots of other stuff still needed doing too. So over the coming days, I would navigate parking lots, wait in restaurant queues, and sit on park benches, pushing back tears, fighting to stay upright, and in general, always being seconds from a total blubbering, room-clearing freak-out. I wanted to wear a sign that said, I just lost my dad. Please go easy. Unless anyone passing by looked deeply into my bloodshot eyes or noticed the occasional break in my voice and thought enough to ask. It's not like they'd have known what's happening inside of me or around me. They wouldn't have had any idea of the gaping sinkhole that had just opened up and swallowed the normal life and the guy next to them in the produce section. And while I didn't want to physically wear my actual circumstances on my chest, it probably would have caused people around me to give me space or speak softer or move more carefully. And it might have made the impossible almost bearable. Everyone around you, the people that you share the grocery store queue with, pass in traffic, sit next to in work, encounter on social media, and see across the kitchen table. All are experiencing the collateral damage of life. They're all grieving someone, missing someone, worried about someone. Their marriages are crumbling, or their mortgage payment is late, or they're waiting on their child's test results, or they're getting bananas 5 years after a death and still pushing back tears because the loss feels as real as it did on that first day. Every single human being you pass by today is fighting to find peace and to push back fear, to get through their daily task without breaking down in front of the bananas or in the traffic queue or at the post office. Maybe they aren't mourning the sudden tragic passing of a parent, but wounded, exhausted, pain-ravaged people are everywhere, every day stumbling all around us. And yet most of the time, we're fairly oblivious to them. Parents whose children are terminally ill, couples in the middle of a divorce, people grieving loss of loved ones and relationships, kids being bullied at school, teenagers who want to end their lives, people marking the anniversary of a death, parents worried about their depressed teenager, spouses whose partners are deployed in combat, families with no idea how to keep the lights on, and single parents with little help and little sleep. Everyone is grieving and worried and fearful, and yet none of them wear the signs. None of them have labels, and none of them come with written warnings reading, "I'm struggling, go easy." And since they don't, it's up to you and me to look more closely and more deeply at everyone around us, at work or at the gas station or in the produce section, and to never assume that they aren't all just hanging by a thread. Because most people are hanging by a thread, and our simple kindness can be that thread. We need to remind ourselves just how hard the hidden stories around us might be, and to approach each person as a delicate, breakable, invaluable treasure, and to handle them with care. As you make your way through the world today, people won't be wearing signs to announce their mourning or to alert you to the attrition or to broadcast how terrified they are. But if you look with the right eyes, you'll see the signs. There are grieving people all around you. Go easy. And so you might be thinking, is this an address about death? And perhaps you might think that, particularly if you're new to spiritualism. But it's not. Although the topic of that blog post was inspired by his father's death, I'm not here to talk to you about death. As spiritualists, we know that there is a life after death. But I don't want to dwell on that. I want to talk about life before death. Because to me, that is the real message of spiritualism. That is what I have learnt from spiritualism. That there is only one thing, and that is life. It's important to think about what's important when we think about the words that we've just heard. And it takes me to our second principle, which talks about the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the human connection between us all. And it reminds us how important we are to each other. We all seem to live two lives. We live our public lives where people can see us. They can see what we're wearing, what we look like. They can see what we're doing. They can talk to us. And we choose what we talk about. We talk about the weather. We talk about what we saw on TV. But perhaps we don't talk about that other life that we live. That life that's invisible. That life that's inside of us. And it's in that life inside of us that we face the battleground of fear, lack of confidence, and all the things that cause us worry and anxiety. And we're all dealing with difficult things. And perhaps for all of us, in our living memories, the times that we've been living through this past 12 months have been, if not some of the most difficult, the most difficult. But still we carry on, buying bananas, putting petrol in the car, doing all the things in the outside world that we need to do. And still we have to carry on living within our own selves. And this is an important point because it reminds us how we can look after each other. John Pavlovitz in that reading reminds us to look in a different way, not to just skim over the superficial, not to just take things at face value, but to look a little more deeply. And when we do that, when we use our sensitivity as human beings, we perhaps begin to realize that someone that we meet, that we know, needs our assistance. Another one of our principles is that of eternal progress. And perhaps we might think of eternal progress as something belongs to us and us alone. It's my progress. It's my pathway. It's my journey. And of course it is very different to anybody else's. Your own unique map that takes you deeper and deeper into who you are meant to be. But if you look at a map, there are many crossroads. There are many times when roads and pathways meet. Sometimes they join together and diverge again. Sometimes it's the quickest of crossings. And that's like our progress. Sometimes we're on our own. Sometimes our progress is tied up with the influence of others. And at those points, I would say we have a duty to help wherever we can. Because things that you can do and say influence the progress of another person. But how, if we're not aware of what's going on with another person, can we do that? And so back to the idea of looking very carefully and being sensitive to how other people are, not assuming that everything's brilliant with them, but perhaps we need to just check in and find out. One of the most powerful ways that I believe that we can do that is to allow our inner world, which is invisible, to become more visible. And we can do that in the words that we share. I'll give you an example. There must be a time in everyone here's life when they've thought, how am I going to manage to get through this? How am I going to survive this? How on earth will I get through today? You might have had a difficult moment that you've had to get through. You might have had a horrible day that somehow you had to dig really deep to get through. You might have had a tough few months or a bad year. It happens to all and any of us. But if you have had a difficult time, as I suggested, then there's something else. And that something else is that you are here. The fact that you are here listening to me means that you survived that difficulty, means that you got through those obstacles, means that you lived through it to tell the tale. And it is, I believe, the telling of that tale which is a powerful thing that we can do. And that story, and if you think about the word history, it has the word story in it. And I don't mean a story that's made up, that's fictional. I mean the story of everyone's life. And there are parts of that story which might help someone else. It's part of your progress. It's progress that you've achieved. It's progress that you have perhaps ticked off. On your map, it's territory that you've got through, that steep hill, that difficult terrain, but you made it. And isn't it worth being thankful for that? But not just thankful, thinking about it. How did I manage it? What did I do or say or think that helped me to get through that time? Was it something I did? Or did I just sit and hold on and try to be resilient and live through it? And somehow I did. I think all of you listening to me have got those stories. Stories of your own resilience. Stories of your own achievements. Stories of the times in your life that seemed like a dead end, that somehow you managed to smash through the wall into another day. There's a reason why we have eternal progress. It's about learning. If we never thought about our progress ever again, if we forgot about it, what use would it be? None. It's useful to ourselves because we think, well, I won't do that again. Or perhaps we think, well, I've learnt that lesson. I'll know what to do next time. And if we have, then sharing that with another could just be the thing that they need to encourage them, to help them to get through their day, to help them to overcome their obstacles. Our stories are so powerful because they're about living. They're about how we live. They're about the life that we live in the here and now, which is really all we have. The past doesn't exist anymore, but it's there as a memory to help to learn and to guide us. And if we can find the courage and generosity to share it with others, then it can help them too. I've been privileged in my life to know many people who have been through terrible, terrible times, but they've survived, and they've chosen to use their story to help others. To say, hey, you, I've been there. I've done that. I've got the t-shirt and look at me now. And that's amazing evidence to someone, because how can you argue with that when you think that there is no way forward, and yet there's someone else saying there is, because I did it. I went that way and I survived. It's a challenge, not a challenge to give up, but a challenge to keep going. And it's a little bit of strength that we can share with others. I said at the beginning of this address that this wasn't a talk about death, and it's not. I said it was about the life that comes before that. That's why we're here. That's our job at this moment in time, to live, to be alive. And although I've talked about the difficulties and the struggles that we try to work out in our internal invisible worlds, there are also the amazing triumphs as well. And I want you to remember those, because there's great learning within the successes that we have too. We don't celebrate things enough. We don't thank ourselves enough. We don't congratulate ourselves and say, that was amazing. How did you do that? That was incredible. We're very good at doing that to other people, encouraging them, helping them to take the next steps, being that cheerleader. But we need to do it ourselves, because we're on this journey of eternal progress. So, what can we do? We can, as the reading said, be more sensitive and look for the signs in other people. But perhaps if you don't know what to do and you don't know what to say, then perhaps you might find an inspiration somewhere within your invisible inner world. And that tells you something powerful, that your journey and your experience is amazing. It's precious. It's a treasure that you can share with others. Be proud of what you've done. Value what you've learned. It's helped you to get this far. And there will be little precious moments of that journey that, if you're willing to share them, you'll be bringing that important thing into this world, that valuable thing that is community, that valuable thing that is brotherhood and sisterhood that joins us all together. There is eternal progress for me, for you, for all of us. But sometimes we share it a little. We travel a little part of that journey together. And that's what we need to look out for, our fellow travelers. I hope you will. Thank you. Dear God, how amazing it is that each of us has before us an eternity of progress. Whilst we all have a long way to go, we have all come this far. May we take time to celebrate our achievements. And may we also develop that outward-looking vision so that we may see travelers along the way, travelers on their progress. Help us to ask ourselves, how might we help them? What might we say or do or share with them to be of assistance. For this is service. And we ask that we each have that vision to find and to recognize those people in need. And dear God, help each of us here too to accept that help when we are struggling, when we face those obstacles and barriers. Let us be sensitive to others who might be there to help us. Let us not turn them away. Let us reach out and accept that support, for we are all a part of each other. And dear God, we are a part of you. Amen.